Well, the world has sure gone nutty, buddy, even downright cruddy, buddy. Wish I missed the past, buddy, but there's still Buddycast. No, don't be naughty, go meet it, buddy, here on Buddycast.
One second. My videos do not want to play today.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the founder and host.
Alrighty, apologies for that. My videos don't want to play today, apparently.
Hey, we know who the founder and host is here, though. The Nick
Exactly.
Sorensen.
Yep. Welcome to another episode of everybody's favorite show, Buddycast. I'm your host, Nick Sorensen, and joining me today is a very special buddy, my buddy Jonathan. How you doing today, buddy?
Good, man. We've been planning this for like half a year, it seems, so I'm finally glad to be on here.
At least half a year, you know? But I'm glad we finally do it, because it's worth the wait. It truly is.
I'm excited.
Mm-hmm. For those of you who don't know, Jonathan is a local teacher. He's a fantastic writer, and all around just good buddy. So that brings up my first question. What inspired you to go into education?
I actually don't have a distinct memory of the point that I'm like, I'm going to become a teacher. I know my brother was doing it at the time. He's 4 years older than me, and he had just gotten a job down in North Carolina. So I was kind of seeing it from his perspective. But I was a senior in high school, and like a lot of seniors, had no idea what I wanted to do. Like I wanted to do everything. Like everything sounded interesting to me. So like I applied to a film school out in Los Angeles because I, always like to write, and we used to like make movies on camcorders and stuff. I thought about going into the Army and flirted with the ROTC for a while. I thought about like becoming a pilot, and I applied to Embry-Riddle for aeronautical science, and applied to English programs. And eventually I didn't even start in education. I was a double major in criminology and sociology. That was my first major, and I loved it. But I guess after like a year of studying it, I was kind of like looking at prospective job paths and stuff like that, and, pivoted and decided, okay, I'm going to try something else. And I ended up settling on education, and I almost chose English, but I probably chose history because for somebody that's interested in like everything, history is great. Like I can study whatever I want, any topic I want in any point in history. And I guess that was the allure of it. So yeah, it was a weird path to end up here. I never thought I would be a teacher. Like as a teenager, it never crossed my mind. And then here I am. No regrets.
Brilliant. What are some of your favorite things in history to study or to cover, like to teach?
So I'm pretty fortunate. I have like my dream position. My curriculum starts in basically World War II, and it's U.S. history, so it's from the perspective of, us here. And then I work all the way up until as far as I get. So I generally get to modern day. We cover everything from the civil rights movement to the turbulent 1960s and Vietnam and the hippies, the Cold War, all through the 80s, the rise of Reagan. Then we get to the history that I lived through, which was weird at first, like covering Bill Clinton and the impeachment and stuff that I remembered. And then we get all the way up through 9/11, Afghanistan, the rise of the internet. We cover even the history of social media and like the origins of Facebook and MySpace and all that. So it's literally it's a dream job, and it's the history that kids really like too. They really engage with that time, those periods of history.
Nice. Now, every teacher, usually has a story about like one teacher or so that left a lasting impact on them. Even me, I'm not a teacher, but, I can name some teachers off my hand that I still thank today for just being who they are. Are there any teachers you've had in the past that you still thank to this day?
I think back to my time at Cambridge Springs, which is where I grew up, and I was really lucky. like we used to joke that they were the dinosaurs. They were kind of like the old school teachers, but they were all fantastic. Every teacher I had from kindergarten to fifth grade was extremely nurturing, which is something I think that I definitely needed and responded to. My second grade teacher, Miss Folk, she was like legendary. She was a brand new teacher, and she was just so wonderful. Then I get to high school, and I had just great history teachers. I had, a teacher named Mr. Workmeister in 8th grade and Mr. Cleffel in 9th grade. And they really, really turned me on to history. We still talk about them, like in our text conversations. Those teachers will come up and, the lessons they taught. And I had great English teachers. So Mr. Molnar, and then I had Mrs. Hoffman, and they really instilled in me the love of like classic literature, like things that a lot of people would find boring, like John Steinbeck, Les Mis, Count of Monte Cristo, Shakespeare. They really, really turned me on to that. And yeah, I was just really lucky. 95% of my teachers I loved, and I liked going to school, which I guess that's a good thing if the teachers convince you to want to go to school.
Exactly. Definitely. And I love how it was different subjects. It wasn't just all history down the line, Yeah. Because you mentioned literature, because I'm assuming that's what brought you to writing. That's what brought you to writing for the Erie Reader. Am I correct?
Yeah. Well, I think writing is something I was always I mean, since I was a little kid and I could write, I was always writing stories. And most of the stuff I wrote in elementary school was like stealing ideas from pop culture. So like my famous character from when I was a kid was named Tex. And he was this character. He wore like a cowboy hat and like Clint Eastwood. He had claws like Wolverine. And he had that, if you remember Super Mario Brothers 3, the raccoon suit. He had, for some reason, he had the raccoon ears and tail. Like that was my character. And then I would move on like to write stories. I wrote a story where I was like a LAPD police officer, which was basically my 4th grade ripoff of Die Hard. And then I wrote like sci-fi alien stories that were just ripoffs of the Alien movies. But I've never stopped writing. I wrote all through my teenage years, through my 20s, mostly just privately. I didn't usually write for people or anything. I was too, I think, self-conscious and nervous. And actually, not long before I got the Erie Reader gig, I had been writing a book. I never reached out to an agent or anything. Like it was just something I was doing for myself, and maybe eventually I'd do something with it. And then I had I don't know, because I'm dumb apparently. I was writing it all on a USB drive. I didn't back it up whatsoever. I guess because I was just leaving my computer in one spot. I didn't think anything would ever happen to it. Well, one day I was moving my laptop because we were having guests over, and I hit the USB drive off the side of the wall and broke it in half. And I had 50,000 words, so that would be like roughly the first Harry Potter's book. That's what I had written. So I contacted this like FBI specialist that did like forensic stuff with that, and he actually let me send it to him for free. Didn't charge me anything, and he was basically like, "Yeah, there's no recovering this." But I'm glad. I actually don't regret it because I was like 27. It probably was terrible. So,
you think you'd ever resonate that book? Like you'd ever like reconstruct it, or to the best
I
of your memory?
thought about it for years. I'm 35 now, and I'm such a different person at 35 than I was at 27. That's not a story I want to tell anymore. So it was kind of a gift that I broke because I still got the experience of actually writing it. And writing is like batting practice. The more you do it, the better you get. So I still got that experience. And at the time I was like sick to my stomach. My wife will tell you, like for 3 days, I thought I was going to puke because I lost all that. But no, it turned out to be a gift in disguise. And, eventually, shortly after that, I got the Reader, which is a story itself. But
that's my next question. How did you find the opportunity with the Erie Reader?
So I think I've told this story before, but I was teaching U.S. history, and in my school district, a previous administrator had wanted to reconfigure the curriculum, and they eliminated my position at the time. They eliminated the U.S. history class, So there was no U.S. history in our high school anymore at that time.
Wow.
Fortunately, I had a backup. Yeah, I know. I had a backup certification in middle school mathematics. I'd kind of like hidden it. I didn't really want people to know because I didn't want to teach middle school math. But it fortunately saved me because when my position was cut, I was able to bump into a middle school math position, which I was always okay at math, but teaching it, I mean, it was, my wife is a math teacher and she loves it and she's great at it. But for me, it was just like, it was soul sucking. Every day I was really depressed about going to work and I didn't enjoy it anymore. So I created Rust and Dirt, the local history project. And I was kind of doing that to keep that other side of my brain, because math uses like one part of the brain and, writing and researching uses that other part. So I created that Rust and Dirt to kind of keep that part of my brain sharp and to like keep me from spiraling into a deep, sad depression about having to teach math. And that's when Nick Warren of the Erie Reader reached out to me about a month after doing that. And I basically owe everything to Nick for sure, because he was like, hey, I saw the Rust and Dirt thing. That's cool. Do you want to write something for us? And that's when I wrote my first story for them. That was on the King of the Hobos, Leon Ray Livingston. And the rest is history. The owners, Adam and Brian, basically are totally open to letting me write anything at all that I want. I got Nick and Matt who do the editing, and they come up with most of the really cool titles that I could never think of because I'm terrible at that. Jessica does a lot of the photography for the articles to make it really pop. And they're awesome. I mean, they've never said no to any idea that I've had to write. And I write some weird stuff. Mostly history, but as you know, I dabble too. I do some, like I recently wrote about the local comedy scene. I've written about labor strikes at like WobTech and other places up here. So yeah, they're just really supportive and totally okay with letting me flex my creative muscles.
Nice. You've got some fans watching for sure.
Hey, thank you. Facebook user.
Yep. I think that's our buddy Alex Messenger.
Oh, cool. Thanks, Alex.
So you mentioned something earlier, the Rust and Dirt. That's also, you've turned that into a little bit of like a show or like an online thing. Could you tell us more about that?
I don't really know what it is. Like when people ask me, I don't really have a great description of it. My master's is in history, and I spent a lot of time researching historiography and public history. So I guess I kind of envisioned Rust and Dirt as a public history project. It's something that's like forward facing to the public. A lot of history can be really academic and people, are turned off by that. So I wanted something that would be local history that would be really simple. It would come in like little snippets, a post a day, maybe every couple of days. Sometimes I get carried away and do multiple posts a day, but something that's like really just kind of simple little snippets of history, bite-sized, that would be easy for people to, take in. And the goal is just, besides creatively for myself, the goal was just to get people thinking about our local history and realize that it's cool. It's more than just, Oliver Hazard Perry and the War of 1812. There's like so much cool history, and I've spent 5 years, I think, doing Rust and Dirt now. Yeah, this is my 5th year, and I feel like I've probably only maybe have scraped 5% of the surface of cool local history that could be explored. So yeah, that was the idea behind it.
Beautiful. So what are I mentioned this earlier, but like, on top of favorite lessons to teach, what are some of your favorite things to write about when it comes to history? Favorite areas to dive into, to learn more about?
I guess that's the great thing, and kind of how my brain works is I like it all. So if you've followed my Erie Reader history stories, I've spent a lot of time in most eras. I've spent a lot of time on what it was like in Erie, when settlers first came here and pushed the different Native American tribes that were here out. I've written a lot about the 1800s, John Brown, who who lived in Crawford County before his becoming, the famous abolitionist at Harper's Ferry. I've written a lot about the 1900s, how polio devastated our area, the Spanish flu, the eugenics movement. So I don't really have a set period that I like. I just really like learning about it all. And that's my favorite part about writing it is I'm trying to unpack or discover things that have kind of been, if not forgotten, kind of like off in the corners. And I get to kind of pull that out of the dark corners and learn about it myself, which that really like, it's weird, but it's kind of like an adrenaline rush when you're like, I might be the first person who's read this newspaper article in 100 years. And then it's fun to try to tie it all together into a coherent story. Into like, I try to make it into a narrative that can be easy for people to read and is a little more entertaining and less dry. So.
Beautiful. What about local history? What about history of Erie? What are some of your favorite areas to dive into for that?
Oh man, that's hard. Most people know that I've definitely got a deep interest in John Brown. I'm wearing a shirt with John Brown on it right now.
Nice.
And I'm just fascinated by this guy who was living in Crawford County, right outside of Cambridge Springs. He spent his formative early years as a dad there. He was a family man, and he goes through all this devastating tragedy of losing his wife and losing multiple children to sickness. And then eventually he turns into this person who history still is kind of divided on. Some people view him as this like crazy guy who, thought God was speaking to him and tried to end slavery violently. And then other people view him as a guy who was this righteous liberator who saw that people were enslaved, saw that it was wrong, and was willing to do whatever it took to stop it. So I could pick out multiple people from our area, but John Brown's the one that most people who know me, I've spent a lot of time reading about and thinking about. And someday maybe there's never been a book written, or there's been one book, there's been one book written about his time in Pennsylvania. It's a great book, but it's pretty short. And maybe someday I'll write something a little more expansive about those 10 years he spent here, but we'll see.
Brilliant. Now I want to go back to the Erie Reader for a quick second. One of my favorite parts of the Erie Reader is how they really promote local people and a lot of local things like businesses, podcasts, all that. One segment that just came out was the 40 under 40. What's it like writing that segment for you? Like, what's it like featuring all the people with the information that you're given?
So I'm not a part of the selection process, but I do get to write. I generally write 5 of them. They're split among the many contributing writers. As you know, I got to write yours, which was really cool.
Which
I love
thank you for later.
Oh man, yeah, you easily deserve that one. It was like I've told you, you make it easy to write about you. But I love that it highlights just people doing really interesting things, and it gives people a platform where they can highlight the cool things that they're doing around the city. I enjoy learning about those people, and a lot of the time, like after I write it, now we already know each other, but people will reach out to me after I've written about them and thank me and friend me on Facebook, and we'll get to know each other a little bit more. So that's always pretty cool. But yeah, anything that highlights what people are doing positively, I think is fantastic. And I love that over the years, it's become a lot more diverse. I love that it's, highlighting everything from business owners to teachers to nurses and everything in between. And I do sometimes get sad if people feel excluded from it. I wish it could be the 1,000 under 40. So everybody that does awesome things could get highlighted. But Even that aside, it's good just to bring attention to people that are doing really cool things like, you with Buddycast and everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Now, I know you're a fan of Buddycast. I know you're one of our you're one of our disciples. You're one of our followers, But what other podcast do you like to follow in the Erie area?
Well, first of all, man, like, let me just say, nobody gets better guests than Buddycast. No, I'm not talking about me, but like, dude, I know we've privately talked about this, but it's incredible the guests that you get on here. And I just love your attitude, and you deserve all the accolades possible. But the other ones, I love the Idiotville Empire. I love what they've
Those guys are awesome.
Yeah, they started from, I think it was Dill's basement or something like that. And I remember listening to those early episodes, and they were hard to hear at the time because they were just making it up as they went. And now they've built this into this like cool little empire where they highlight cool and interesting people. I know Nick, Warren, and Chris, a professor, I think he's a professor over at Edinburgh. They started a cool new one called Flagship Stories that also is highlighting local people. John Lyons, the local filmmaker, he's got a couple cool podcasts, Cinema Activist and Film Grain, which is about like movies and stuff. Our Area, of course, is great. If you've never listened to Our Area, that's with Lydia and Marty. They're two pretty well-known people in our area, and they talk about local issues and politics and cool stuff like that. I know I'm going to leave some people out, but yeah, lots of good ones here. No Hugging, No Learning is a good one. If you like Seinfeld, they've literally gone through episode by episode of every single Seinfeld episode. One of the people is he's like 10 years younger than me maybe, and he had never seen a single episode of Seinfeld. And the other guy was like my age or a couple years older, and he watched them all when they aired. So it was kind of cool listening to them talk about each episode. And there's so many.
I think you're talking about Ted and Murphy from old film Star 104. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, they're great. They both used to work for Star, and they're both at different places now. But
yes, sadly,
they're just so entertaining. And they started that while Ted was living here in Erie. So.
And they were both fantastic work for. I did my internship with Connoisseur, now iHeartMedia, and
cool.
It was a blast just working with everyone, working with my buddy Alan Carpenter, for example, who I still keep in touch with today. Yeah. He was one of the first. He was someone who helped pilot this thing.
I remember, yeah. So, and he's got that golden voice, man.
He does. He was made for radio. Let's just say that. So a little shout out to him.
Yeah.
Now, one more time, going back to the Erie Reader, when it comes to like your hopes and dreams for the Reader, what do you have to say on that? Like, what are your hopes and dreams for the Erie Reader?
So I'm not really involved in the behind the scenes stuff, but like my hope would be that they just continue to provide, diverse voices and perspectives for the city. I'm not sure if people realize this, but I think most followers of the Erie Reader do. They're an alt weekly, so they're not meant to compete with, Erie Times News or Erie News Now or anything like that. They're meant to complement it. So they all kind of work in tandem to provide news, journalism, opinions, highlighting things that are going around. And I just hope they continue down the path. I like that they're producing that podcast now. I hope they someday bring back Nick's. Nick once did a talk show that was live streamed, and had, I feel like it's been a while, but I think it had like a green screen and all that stuff. It was great. I loved it. And yeah, just keep providing different diverse perspectives and voices. I think last I looked, writers, it was about 50% men and 50% women. So that's good to see that's reflected. And I just hope we get, more diverse voices, maybe some voices from our refugee and immigrant communities. And yeah, just people keep telling cool stories about our area.
Brilliant. Before I ask you our final two questions, I'm just going to say a quick word from our sponsors. This Buddycast is brought to you by Harbor Ridge Golf Course. If you're in the Erie area looking to play a quick 9, sharpen your skills on the putting green or driving range, or looking to play playing golf while having some quality time with buddies, head over to Harbor Ridge at 3730 Harbor Ridge Trail. When you're finished, head over to the... Gotta love technical issues, don't you?
Always.
This Buddycast is brought to you by Harbor Ridge Golf Course. Do you golf at all by chance, buddy?
Oh man, no, you don't want to go golfing with me. All my friends that golf, I'm like, nah, I'll sit this one out. I'm just terrible. I could putt.
Well,
that's about it.
Yeah. I always say if the object of the game was to get the ball into the hole with as many strokes as humanly possible, you'd be looking at the PGA Tour champion, you know?
Yeah, I could
But I will
compete with you there, yeah.
I will say with to promote Harbor Ridge, since my videos aren't playing well, I'll have to reach out to StreamYard about that. Harbor Ridge is a great golf course for all my listeners out there, a great place to just play 9 holes of golf. And when you're done, they have a beautiful deck you can grab a drink on or grab a nice meal. It's got a gorgeous view of Lake Erie. They have live music at nights, and they always incorporate some interesting things like glow golf or fling golf, you know, which I've never heard of before, but they found ways. So contact them today, Harbor Ridge Golf Course.
And if anybody wants to invite me, I'll go with you there, and I will go sit on that deck and wait for you while I enjoy a good drink and food.
And what I love about them too is that it's all local. It's all local or nearby bands. There's no like, okay, let's see if we can get like Casey and the Sunshine Band back together or something like that. Or let's see if, you know, this guy from Memphis, you know, wants to come by. It's always like, hey, what's our buddy Tommy Link up to, who actually wrote our theme song and created our theme song? You know, it's like, what's Matt Boland up to? What's all these people up to? Like, what's the band East Avenue up to today? Let's get them in here. So
yeah,
they like to keep it local.
That's the best.
Now, Now, buddy, my buddy Jonas Kane from #Positivity wants to know, in your own words, what does it mean to be someone's buddy?
Yeah. So, you know, to be somebody's buddy, I think you should always focus on being positive, being genuine with them. A buddy is somebody who you build that person up and you don't tear them down. That's really what being a buddy is all about to me. And, you know, my wife is my best buddy, and I always try, you know, we're not perfect, and sometimes we, you know, snap at each other and things like that happen, but we're always we try to just lift each other up and compliment each other and be honest and be positive and acknowledge each other's successes. And that's what being a buddy is all about.
Brilliant. You're right. Buddies aren't always perfect. Buddies aren't always, you know, everything's happy-go-lucky. Even your best buddy, even your wife, you know, I can attest with my fiance. Sometimes things aren't perfect. You know, we have, you know, she says one thing, I say another, you know, something like that. But at the end of the day, we're still each other's buddy. We're still there for each other, no matter what.
Yep.
So you're absolutely right. And the final question I have for you today, buddy, is what we call the Ultimate Buddycast Buddy Question, which is also sponsored by Harbor Ridge Golf Course. They want to know, what is your advice to anybody who wants to go into education one day? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot that I could say about that. But I'll come from my perspective. I'm definitely a natural introvert. I guess you could call me an introvert who's not really shy. But my advice would just be to get in front of people as much as possible, because, you know, you can learn all the, you know, educational lingo and all the educational theory. You can learn about data analysis and all that stuff. And a lot of that stuff, you know, you just learn as the years go on. But probably the most challenging part of teaching is, you know, you're in front of kids all day, every work day, and you have to be on. You always have to be on. And that can be really challenging, and it can be really, really draining. So even when you have a good day, you can get home and you're just so drained because you spent that 7.5 hours on with kids. So I would just say get in front of people as much as possible. So if you're going to college for it, you know, go find the improv group on campus and do some improv. If you're living here in Erie, go do some of the open mic nights. You will be terrified out of your mind. But that's great, because you're going to get embarrassed in front of students, and you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to slip up, or your zipper is going to be down one day. And the sooner you can get past that sort of like embarrassment, like my students know now, nothing can possibly embarrass me in front of them. But that took years. I mean, I'm in year 13 in this position. I'm going to say it took me probably 7 or 8 years before I got that real comfort level in front of them. And that doesn't mean I wasn't good before. Like, I feel like I was pretty good, but now I feel like completely at ease and comfortable. And I wish I had done more things in college that would got me in front of people. Go do karaoke and embarrass yourself. Join the local play if you can, even if it's just like a couple lines. If there's a public speaking class at your college, oh my gosh, take it. I don't think I took a single public speaking class, and I'm like, that's perfect for a teacher. Ultimately, teaching is part performance art. I think people forget that part of teaching, but it really is a performance that you're putting on, because you got to keep these, in my case, 100 9th through 12th graders entertained and engaged every day, in that there is a performative part to that for sure. So all the educational stuff, all the theory, all the curriculum, you can learn all that and you can do all that on your own, but the getting in front of them and getting comfortable, that's key. So that would be my biggest recommendation, is just get in front of people, let yourself be embarrassed, trudge forward.
Brilliant. And you're absolutely right. It's all about just getting the experience, getting the public speaking, because that's what teaching is. Public speaking with lessons, It's not all just here's some words on the board, test on Tuesday. Right. Something like that. It's how am I going to communicate with these students to make sure they understand what I'm talking about, what I'm trying to explain to them.
Yeah, and even if you're in a small group, so you break kids up and you're in tables in small groups, as you sit down with one of those small groups, you're doing the same thing. You may be sitting at a chair at a table with them, but you're still the captain of the ship there, and you got to make sure that they're on board with you and they're not, trying to bail.
I love it. And one more question for you. What's your advice to anyone who wants to be a writer?
2 things. Read. Reading is practicing for writing. Read as much as possible. Read lots of different kinds of things. Read memoirs, read fiction, read nonfiction, read magazines. Do more than just reading, Facebook posts and tweets. That's reading too, and that's not bad. Don't get me wrong. But you want to read things that have deliberate structure and try to pay attention to the styles. Pay attention to what are the writers doing? Why, when that chapter ends, are you so excited to get to the next chapter? There's something they did there that made you want to read that next chapter, and start thinking about that. And then the second thing, and it's kind of obvious, write every day. Even if it's just 5 minutes, even if it's for nobody's eyes but your own, write. And then for me, I think the even more important part is go back and edit that writing. Put it aside for a while, wait a week, wait a month, wait even longer, go back, and you're going to see all the flaws in that you didn't notice the first time. And you can go through and you can edit it. And again, even if it's just for yourself, that's great practice for whenever you try to take the leap into getting published. And when you do get published, it's going to freak you out. My first few Erie Reader articles, I was a ball of anxiety knowing that people were actually reading it. There's probably some imposter syndrome and stuff there, but it was freaking me out. And I noticed things that I would have changed. Things that I wasn't really happy with in the final product that I had missed. But then you're just like, hey, it's out there in the world now, and let people enjoy it. So yeah, pretty simple. Read, write.
Brilliant. And another buddy of mine gave me some great advice for writing too, which was when you wake up in the morning, have a notebook by your side and just write. It doesn't have to be like constructive, right? Like it doesn't have to be like everything makes sense or, like you're writing on certain stuff. Just write what's ever on your mind.
Yeah, there's a great tactic. Yeah, there's a tactic called the shoebox method, which I like, but I don't do it as an actual shoebox. But the idea is like if an idea pops in your head, you've got Post-it notes or something somewhere near you, keep them in your pocket, write it down on the Post-it note, fold it up, put it in the shoebox, and then eventually that shoebox will just be full of different ideas that you had. I kind of do the digital version of that. Mine is all just, notes on my phone.
Yep.
Which I probably got 100 of those that.
And the beauty of that thing too, of what my buddy was saying, is that if you do that, it gets the clogs moving, it gets the mind ready, so you're more attentive to your day. Which, for example, with comedy writing, 90% of my comedy stuff comes from interactions during my day. It comes from, just what happens during the day, what happens during this time. Here's a funny story, I went to this restaurant and, you get the little kid who's always curious about about someone that's different, how can I turn this into something funny? How can I turn,
And don't
So it's
rely
all
on
about
your
paying
memory. Don't rely on your memory. There's so many times that I'm like, I will remember this later. And then I'll be home and I'll be like, wow,
Exactly.
I know I was supposed to remember something, but I have no idea what I was supposed to remember. So yeah, get
Exactly.
it down. Yep.
The amount of times I've come up with a joke, like, that would be so funny. I think I could work something with this, like in the middle of work or something. All right, I got to finish this thing and then I'll do it. I'll literally come home from work. What was that joke again? Something to do with this. Yeah, I'll remember it tomorrow or something like that,
Yeah, it always seems to fail you when you plan that way.
Exactly. Well, buddy, thank you so much for being a buddy here on Buddycast. Thanks for finally stopping on, taking the time to chat with us. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for both the wonderful article on 40 Under 40 and for the wonderful piece that you wrote about Buddycast. I'm so honored to have a fan like you, someone in my corner, putting me on paper, It means a lot. So thank
you
you
for having me, and keep doing what you're doing. I can't wait to see this continue to grow. And I'm excited every time I see a new episode pop up.
Brilliant. Thank you. For all my buddies out there, this is my buddy, Jonathan Burdick. Please check out his work in the Erie Reader. Check out his writing. You won't regret it. And buddy, you know how I'm going to end this episode? I got one favor to ask you.
Go be somebody's buddy.
You got it. You got it. Hey, we'll catch you all next time here on Buddycast, if this outro video works.
Well, the days are going fast, buddy, we've got to make them last, buddy, before they've all gone past, buddy, tune in to Buddycast. Don't feel none, go make it, buddy, here on Buddycast.